Hi everyone, it's Chris Wolfington here and Mia Wise, and this video is coming to you exclusively because you've been carefully chosen by the Howie algorithm to be coaches for Transform next week, which we're looking forward to. We want to give you as much of an introduction as possible to get you properly prepared for that role. And essentially, we've got an agenda that is partly structured and partly unconsciously not structured. And the part of the event that is the most structured is the part that we'll be relying on you as coaches to help facilitate and lead small groups of about 8 people. So Mia, in a second, will share a lot of kind of the administrative details and the content around that. But before she does, the other piece that we're counting on you for is also around, just attitude and disposition towards leading your team. It's really going to be helpful and critical to set the tone for the entire event, and that's the opportunity that we've got here. So really want to ask you to approach the exercises that Mia will describe with a spirit of being open and honest and direct, and even to the point of modeling some vulnerability for the group. Someone's going to need to go first, and we're counting on the coaches to do that. So thank you in advance. Look forward to seeing you next week, and I'll turn it over to Mia.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. I'm looking forward to seeing you all later this week. As Chris said, I'm going to walk through the more administrative portions of the team activities that we will count on you to lead over the course of the couple of days. And I'll do so by walking through a document that's a detailed coach's notes document that will be sent out to you following this meeting so that you have it in hard copy as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. All right, Chris, can we see the screen? I'll take that as a yes. All right. So we're going to get started here with opening night. So this will be Tuesday evening beginning at 4. What you'll notice here is that at each of the top of the sections, I've listed some desired outcomes that the team has put together when we think about what we want to accomplish with each session. So with opening night, we're hoping to foster some initial bonds with the team, set the tone for the event so that participants engage fully and meaningfully with the exercises that we have over the course of the couple of days. And then we also model practice vulnerability, and that goes back to what Chris was saying earlier, and that really begins with you. So I'll start off by moving here into the agenda. We have an arrival time between 4 and 5 p.m. where snacks and drinks will be provided. Starting at 5, we'll begin with the actual content for the program here. We have 2 speakers following the introduction by Chris and Howie, Rich West and Rachel Cook. And we're really looking forward to having them with us. And then from 5:50 to 6 p.m., we'll transition into our team rooms, which is where you will meet your teams of 8 or so people to lead the exercise for the rest of the evening, which will go from 6 until 8. So beginning at 6, we'll kick off with the River of Life. River of Life is going to be the framing exercise for the next few days. And the River of Life exercise is an opportunity for the participants to reflect on the inflection points over the course of their life or professional career. The time horizon can be what they choose, and then to share that with the group and have the group reflect on what values might be showing up over the course of that person's story. So starting off, the coach will introduce the exercise. I've included a script here that I won't go through in exact verbatim detail, but just generally, you're going to frame the exercise as an opportunity to explore personal journeys, values, and motivations, and to get to know your team members. There will be a large piece of paper and some colored pencils in front of on the table in front of the participants. And you'll ask them to consider their life as a river. Think about the different streams and other rivers that have helped them get there, some fast-moving times in their lives, some challenges or rocks that they've had to move to, other offshoots or rapids or waterfalls or toxic sewers or still times, and they'll draw a river to reflect meaningful points in their life. I would say, back to the time horizon piece, we can ask the participants to choose the time horizon. If they want to start at birth, that's great. If they want to focus on their professional journey, that's also great as well. They'll have 20 minutes to draw their river. Following that, the coach will share his or her river of life to set the tone. So we'd like you to do that in about 10 minutes or so, not to share the entirety of your river, but just a portion of it to model the type of vulnerability and behavior that we would like to see the participants express in this exercise. So if you could take a few moments to draw your own river prior to Tuesday and pick out one or two pieces that you would like to share with the group to set the tone for the evening, that would be really helpful. Chris, anything to add before I move on?
No, that sounds perfect.
Okay. So after the coach shares their river of life, then the participants will actually spend 20 minutes to draw it. So the introduction and the coach sharing will happen first, and then the drawing for 20 minutes. At the 6:40 mark, we'd like you to move towards the massive transformative purpose piece. And there's a transition script here, and I'll just share briefly what we're envisioning that look like. Now that the participants have had the chance to explore their journey up until this point, we want them to think about where they want to go and what their purpose is. So we're going to ask the participants to draw an ocean, draw the end of their river flowing into an ocean. And the ocean will represent the massive transformative purpose that they are striving for. And we've written out what an MTP is, and we've walked through the exact steps that the coach should guide the teams through. So in order for the participants to develop their own MTP, and there's a worksheet that goes along with this that will be in the room for you. We'll start by having you ask the participants to identify the who of their MTP. So on their worksheet, there will be a spot for them to do this, but you'll say, think about the who is the target audience for your MTP. What community do you want to create a lasting impact for? Is it the high school students or the elderly or a certain demographic? Are there other groups? We're hoping that they can really hone in on a specific audience that they're trying to impact. Once they all do that, then you'll move to having them identify the what. And the what is the problem that they want to take on or solve. And so we're asking them to start by writing down the top 3 items that get them most jazzed, that get them most riled up that they want to solve. Then for each of the 3 problems, they will be asked 5 different questions and then a total score to evaluate which problem they should really hone in on it for the time being and for the sake of this exercise. The questions are listed here, and they'll also be listed on the worksheet. And so you'll have every participant think about each problem individually and score each problem on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of the 6 questions, here, and then a total score at the end. The winner, in quotes, will be their ocean for this exercise, and so they will draw that at the end of their river of life, and they'll write their massive transformative purpose in the ocean and consider what other offshoots or rapids or challenges they might need to face or they might face in pursuing this MTP. Following all of that, since they've spent most of the time doing head-down individual work, thinking about their journey and then thinking about their purpose, we'll ask them to split into 2 sub-teams of 4 and then go get their food and return to the room. So this will be dinner and the river of life sharing simultaneously. So in their subgroups, each person is going to share their river of life one by one for 15 minutes. So they'll walk their group through their river of life, and they'll think about some questions that you can pose to them to consider when they share with their group. Some examples might be, what are the key successes and failures that have shaped who you are today? What are the driving forces in your life? Where do you want to go? What is your MTP? What are your goals? And what do you need to help you reach it? As the individual is sharing with their group, the group members will have sticky notes and write 1 to 2 word values that they hear articulated by the presenter. And the purpose here is for the presenter to reflect on what are the similarities and the differences between how he or she thinks she is being perceived, and what he or she thinks of or what other people think of their values and the things that they've focused on. There are interesting things that can emerge here. Maybe there are values that the participant never reflected on or never thought they expressed that their teammates are seeing. It also gives the teammates a chance to get to know the participant better and ask them questions to try to foster some stronger bonds immediately. There's a sub-team schedule here, so we'd like every person to share for 15 minutes. And at the end of each presentation, each presenter will just write a short phrase, a couple of words that encompasses their journey and their MTP primarily on their name tag. And so this really anchors them to their purpose, their goal throughout the course of the next couple of days. And we'd like to return to that throughout the program. Chris, did I miss anything when I went through that? What do you have to add?
Only just to clarify, so the teams will be teams of 8. So this last share part is when we split into just groups of 4, just to facilitate the sharing happening within an hour. So just to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sub teams of 4 so that we make sure everyone has enough time. Okay, and then after that, they are free to go back into the main space, and there will be guidance there for them to pick up anything they need for the next day, or programming for the next day that they need to know. So we'll move on to day 2. Breakfast will be available at 8:30 to 9, and during that time, we're going to ask that the participants write their business-oriented ask, which they've already started to think about during their pre-work, on a large sticky note, which will feed into the give and take exercise that's happening at 9:45. So if you do see participants milling around at breakfast, if you could check in with them and say, have you written your ask on a sticky note yet? That would be helpful, just to make sure that everyone has done it by the time that opening comments at 9 a.m. start. At 9, Chris will make some opening comments. Chris, do you want to say anything about this or the
one more
workshop?
thing on the give and take. We also set up a spreadsheet on the Google Drive to begin collecting those in advance. So some people are doing it now, but there'll be an opportunity to add to it and supplement it.
Yes.
And then the opening comments, no, these we expect to be pretty brief, and we'll be jumping right into the give and take exercise as a group.
Okay. Great. So give and take will begin at 9:45, but slightly earlier, I guess, depending on the opening comments and the picture workshop and how everything kind of comes together there. Give and take is an opportunity for the participants to share and ask with their fellow participants and team members and Duke Transform cohort. And then also give them the chance to provide advice or suggestions or ideas to each other as well. So our desired outcomes for this exercise is that they recognize the power of the network, that they feel comfortable asking for advice on a current business challenge that they can act on immediately following the event, that they feel good providing advice and contributions to others, and then the trust is further fostered and enhanced within the network. So this activity will take place from 9:45 to 10:30. And what will happen is that there will be large sticky notes that have each individuals ask written on them, and they will be posted on the wall. Next to the large sticky notes posted on the wall, there will be a smaller envelope. So once that setup happens, the participants will be given small Post-it sticky notes, and they will walk around and review the asks written on the wall. And if they see an ask that they think they can answer, that they can give a piece of advice to, or an idea or a suggestion or a resource, they'll write their idea or suggestion or resource or advice on the sticky note, and they'll decide if they want to put it on the wall. But if they would like to keep it anonymous and keep their suggestion private between that person and the individual, they can place it in the envelope. One thing to note here is that the large sticky notes with the asks on them will be anonymous. There will be no names attached to them. They'll be on the back so that we can ultimately give all of the responses to each individual person. But the goal here is to really focus on the question and not focus on the person who's asking that question. That will happen from 9:45 to 10:30. People will be milling around, looking at questions, asks that are being posed, and providing advice. We ask that you do the same and that you contribute to this exercise as well, and just be available to answer any questions that people have about the logistics of the exercise. Chris, anything you'd like to add there or clarify?
No, just that this document will send you the link to in Howie's email, so you'll have access to it anytime.
Okay, great. At 10:30, depending on how the activity is going, and if we feel like people still need more time to answer questions, we can flex this. But theoretically, at 10:30, we'll come together for a quick debrief on the exercise itself. We'll do this as a large group, but we'll have people group together with people near each other. And we'll have the coaches ask with the people around them, did you see any trends or themes among the questions asked? How did you feel about submitting a question anonymously? Did that help or hurt your desire to be candid with your ask? And what was the experience like providing offers to others? This is just an opportunity for everyone to reflect on the exercise together and think about what the benefits were in order to ensure that we're reaching those desired outcomes that I outlined above. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the last exercise here. There will, of course, be a full day in between this, in between give and take and this last action planning exercise. But at 5:30, we'll come together, and this is where you'll be with your small teams again, your teams of 8, and you'll lead an action planning exercise. The purpose of this exercise is to allow the participants to reflect on their experience at Duke Transform, to give them the opportunity to identify key action items and takeaways, and then to confirm how and when they're going to follow up on those action items with their talking partner. Some framing for this exercise that I've found useful in the past is to talk about how typically after these events, we all have wonderful intentions of sitting down and reflecting on our experience and thinking about what we'll do as a result of the connections that we made and the lessons that we learned. And sometimes we think we'll do that on the plane going home or in the office the next day. And more times than not, that doesn't happen. So we'd like to carve out some dedicated time for people to think about what they've learned and think about what they'll do moving forward. Sometimes, obviously the strength of this exercise and the benefit received from it is really dependent on the person's willingness to engage and be serious about it. So if you can frame it as something that's a benefit to them, that we're trying to give them the time and space to reflect, we think that will increase their motivation to participate fully. So at 5:30, you'll hand out 2 worksheets to each individual in the team. There's a script here with some talking points that you can use as you provide some of the framing. And then you'll spend 10 minutes having them identify 2 action items that they're going to take based on their experience. The first one here is directed towards their own venture or company or professional aspiration or MTP. So something that is inward looking. What are they going to do for themselves given their experience at Duke Transform? They're going to write down the one action, and then you're going to ask everyone to think about what the first thing that they're going to do to set this plan in motion is. It can be something really simple like set a calendar invitation on my calendar on my Outlook to meet with X person. Then you're going to ask them to do a little bit of contingency planning. So if they run into a roadblock, how will they overcome it? If this doesn't work, what will they do? Think about the if X then Y question, and just get them thinking about what they'll do if things don't necessarily go as planned. This will make it more likely that they're able to follow through on their action. And then they'll write down who they'll be accountable to. Maybe they'll be accountable to themselves. Maybe they'll be accountable to someone on their team or someone at Duke Transform, but just identify a person. Once you've walked the entire group through that for their venture, then you'll have them do the same exercise, but the directed focus is on a team member's venture. So thinking about the 8-person team, for someone in that group, what is one thing that you're going to do for their venture or their MTP or their company? So think it's others focused. So you'll have them write down one action. Then you'll have them write down the first thing that they're going to do to set this in motion. Then you're going to have them contingency plan again. And then you'll ask them who they'll be accountable to. So that should take about 10 minutes. If it takes a little longer, a little shorter, that's okay. Once you do that, now that they've planned, we're going to ask them to commit to it verbally. So here you're going to ask everyone to stand up and share both of their actions. So it's only part one of the worksheet that they completed with the entire team. So if Chris and I are in a group together, we've both written down an action plan for my venture, for our own venture, and then someone else's venture. And you, the coach, will ask us to stand up and share it with the group. So I'll stand up and I'll say, for my venture, I will do this. And it should be brief and focused. And then I'll say, for Chris's venture, I will do this. And that's it. So it should take less than a minute, quick statement about what they're going to do. Then once I do that, Chris will do the same. After everyone does that, we'd like them to then meet with their talking partner who they already know to schedule time for a follow-up discussion to think about what the progress is that they've made on these actions. And that brings us to the close of the team time. From there, I think, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll move into the broader session for a speaker. Is that right?
Actually, we're going to have dinner first. So we'll kind of congregate over a meal, and then we've got our final portion of the whole event, which is with Coach Cut. Great.
So that brings us to the end of day 2 on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Chris, what did I miss? Is there anything that we should clarify?
I think that was perfect. And for all the coaches, Mia will be guiding us through these 3 sessions where we're leaning on you to lead your team. So you will be in good hands. And this agenda will be available to you. And we've got a lot of good tools that help the exercises happen efficiently and help things flow. So I think we're in great shape. Mia, thanks. Anything more that you want to add?
I don't think so. We'll have our contact information available to you. I'm sure you probably have Chris's already, but mine will be in the email that goes out to you with this agenda. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have clarifying questions or just want to run through the exercise before Tuesday. I'm happy to make myself available.